Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Maple Leafs 7-3. So the hope was after the Kings game, the last game, that they could turn the page from what was not good hockey, specifically their losses to Ottawa and Washington, and they weren't able to do that. So they are kind of mired in this slump. And look, like, this was inevitable. I mean, like, everything was coming a little bit too easily. And the Rangers have not been great lately. They've been giving up a lot of goals. The Rangers' record drops to 19-7-1. So through 27 games, you're at just about the 1/3 mark of the season. And, right now there's a lot of things to work on. A really, really brutal start for the Rangers. The first period was awful. They allowed 4 goals. They're outshot 11-3. And just a lot of bad. Not many players were great tonight, if I'm being perfectly honest. And right at the top, let's talk about K'Andre Miller. He was out for personal reasons. So hope all is well with K'Andre Miller. Not sure if this is a short-term thing, a long-term thing, but he was out. So Zach Jones in the lineup. Matthew Robertson called up. It's might be like a Connor Mackey situation where we may never see him in the lineup for as long as K'Andre's out. But so what that means is now you have that Jones-Schneider pair, which wasn't very good. Neither of them were good. And then Eric Gustafsson takes the place of K'Andre Miller with Trouba. And so that pair is not as good. Eric Gustafsson, I think, you're starting to see why he has been a bit of a journeyman. Was it still a really good signing by Chris Drury? Yes, it was. And I, as the third pair defenseman, you can live with it. But when you have to move him up and he's in that spot in a top 4 situation, he gets exposed. I mean, like, in terms of turning the puck over, like neutral zone defense, he's not the most physical defenseman in the world. Like, those things are highlighted for sure. So that's first off. Igor Shesterkin has really, really struggled. It's team-wide, but he is a big part of it. And so he allowed 6 goals tonight. And yeah, like, Jonathan Quick's been the better goaltender. I mean, I guess that's an obvious statement, but that shouldn't be the case. Speaks to how well Quick has done, but Igor has struggled. And you got to get early in the game, you got to stop the bleeding, and it just never happened. The second goal was really bad. The first goal, I feel like I wish he could have stopped that one. Yeah, I mean, there's just no way around it. And so now, Friday, Saturday, you have a back-to-back, home against the Ducks and at the Bruins. And if it was because that's a clear distinction. Anaheim, Western Conference team who has really been pretty bad lately. They're like 10-17 on the season after a good start. They've been bad. And then you have at Boston, who they haven't been spectacular lately either, but I mean, they're still one of the best teams in the league and in your conference. And so personally, if I'm trying to win games right now, I would go Igor versus the Ducks, and then I would go Quick versus the Bruins. But we'll see how that plays out, right? I mean, they'll split those games, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way, but that'd be my personal preference to do that, which I think is saying something considering the fact that, Igor is still the unequivocal number 1 guy. But, there is a little bit more of a goalie controversy, if you will. Although, again, like, take that with somewhat of a grain of salt because they're going to be kind of, especially with these back-to-backs, they're going to be splitting time anyway. But Igor has struggled. Really, ever since he came back, that injury. That Carolina game really did a number to the Rangers where Fox gets hurt, Hedl gets hurt, and Shesterkin gets hurt. That game really, Fox is, he's playing better lately, Fox. Like, I'm starting to see, he was one of the few guys I actually liked his game tonight. I did. So he's starting to come around. But obviously there's still no Philip Hedl, and Igor has not really been, he was better before he got hurt. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying he was like amazing, but he's been worse since then. And then as far as the forwards are concerned, not a lot of them were very good. There's not a whole lot of positives that I can say about the forwards. So Blake Wheeler gets a couple of goals tonight, which is good, but he completely fucked up the first goal of the game. He took a, I mean, It was a delayed penalty on a stick infraction, which it was going to be a hooking penalty, which he always does. And then his defense was soft. Just let the Maple Leafs go right through the neutral zone, easily in, and they eventually scored. So even though there's positives with Wheelers, there's negatives. Same thing with Zibanejad. Zibanejad, he ends up with a goal and assist. Of course, the goal on the power play, because that's where he gets his shit done. But I also didn't like his game. I thought he made we'll talk about some pretty critical mistakes. Panarin was quiet, right? Like Panarin, I wouldn't say like he was bad, but he was quiet. Like you don't normally see him that way. He does continue his home point streak with an assist on, I believe it was a secondary assist on the power play. Alexis Lafreniere's game has quieted down, which is a bit discouraging, right? I sung his praises for really seeming to turn the corner, and unfortunately, he really has taken a dip. And that's where he needs to just nip that. Like, look, you're going to go through some ups and downs, but now he just not quite as engaged. I'm not seeing the speed as much, so yeah, didn't love his game. And yeah, I thought the bottom six gave it a good effort. And the second period, they kind of were the catalyst. They didn't score, but early on, they were getting chances. Pitlick had an opportunity. I think Goodrow had some chances. But ultimately, the Rangers had played a very good second period. They get a couple of goals late in the second to cut the deficit to 1 from 3. And then a really devastating penalty that starts the third. Let's get into it and discuss this game. Now, the Maple Leafs lost last night to the Islanders in overtime. And if that sounds familiar, it should, because that was the same setup with the Kings, where the Kings had lost in overtime the night before the Rangers played them. But the difference was that the Rangers were coming off of a really bad effort themselves. Again, the one good thing with the Rangers is that when the chips are down and they've been playing poorly, they will typically respond. Like this game, the Rangers, the pressure wasn't as on coming off of the good King game. Expect them to be raring to go versus the Ducks. That much is probably true. But yeah, it's getting, and the Rangers are doing a good job of it. It's getting back to that attitude of, hey, doesn't matter how well you've played, you got to keep going. And it's very disappointing that they were not able to follow up that performance versus the Kings. In net for Toronto was Martin Jones. He's basically their third string. Joseph Wall is injured. He was their starter. Then Ilya Samsonov, who hasn't been very good, he was in that last time versus the Islanders. So Martin Jones is not, I think this might have been his first start of the season in the NHL. Martin Jones at this point, isn't a very good goalie. That's just what it is. But yet he did all right tonight. So let's talk about the first period. So, like I said, Blake Wheeler, there was a delayed penalty on Wheeler. An offensive zone, just not a good penalty. But what makes it worse is him and I think, was it Gustafsson? I think it might have been Gustafsson. Among others, were very soft in letting Nylander get right into the zone, and then he gets it to Matthews, who scores 3:52 in. Austin Matthews scores his 20th goal from Nylander and Gregor. And, you just want to see Igor make that save. I'm not saying, look, Austin Matthews is the greatest goal scorer in the league these days, right? And so, I'm not saying it's easy, but you're just looking for that big save. And it seems like Igor has kind of struggled out of the gates. And in Igor's best of times, what's made him so good is he's able to kind of put it behind him. He doesn't let it get away from him. And what has happened this year, when they've lost and he's lost, it has gotten away from him. And that's why the numbers, I'm not sure what they are on the season, but they're probably kind of ugly for Shesterkin. And that's not great. Then at 5:07, I would say, was probably Igor's worst goal of the night. On a face-off loss by Goodrow, the Maple Leafs take a shot from the point. It's Connor Timmins scoring his first goal of the season from Yarncroke and Domi. The only thing I could think that might have happened there was maybe Zach Jones screened him. Because I saw that Igor was kind of pissed off, which, look, his body language has been bad, which isn't good. But Igor seemed not necessarily mad at himself. And I don't know if it was directed towards Zach Jones. Just guessing on a quick replay that I saw. Either way, that's not a goal that you can give up. It gives the Maple Leafs 2-0 lead. Then 35 seconds after, Blake Wheeler scores his third goal of the season unassisted. So, trying to make up for that first goal by the Leafs. Wheeler scores, makes it 2-1. But then Zibanejad takes a tripping penalty at the 6-minute mark. And again, I didn't like Mika's game tonight, really. So Rangers do kill that off, though. But then the Rangers get a power play at 10:46. McCabe hooks Kreider, but the Rangers' power play was not good there. Leafs have a good penalty kill. Rangers don't score, so the score remains 2-1. And then at 15:20, it's Järnkrok scoring his 7th goal of the season from Tavares. And this was a Jones-Schneider nightmare. Jones and Schneider pinned in their own zone. The Leafs whacking away. If you want to make arguments towards Igor, the rebound control was not necessarily great, but I can't totally kill him. And Järnkrok just buries it, gives the Leafs a 3-1 lead. And then 21 seconds later, it's a goal by Marner, his 10th goal of the season from Matthews and Legason. And that one, again, letting the Leafs in too easily from the neutral zone. And I want to say that Gustafsson didn't look good on that one either. Keep in mind, Erik Gustafsson finished last season with the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Marner, nothing that Igor could do on this one. Marner with the easy goal on a nice pass by Matthews, and Toronto's got a 4-1 lead. But the Rangers played a good second period, and it took a while for the results to come, but they were doing a nice job. Now at 10:27, you get roughing minors to Kreider and Legason. Nothing comes of that goal-wise. And then at 14:56, Timmins hooks Trocheck, so Trocheck continues to draw penalties. And on that power play, they do score. Zibanejad in his patented spot scores the power play goal, his 8th goal of the season from Panarin and Fox. So it was actually a primary assist for Panarin. That makes it 4-2. And again, they had been playing well up until that point, like defensively structured better, and the results come. And then at 18:26, they cut the lead to 1. It's another goal for Blake Wheeler. So Wheeler, his 4th goal of the season, 2nd of the night, from Zibanejad and Trouba. So Rangers are feeling good going to the third. Like, they took the game over. But in the third period, you get a bad turnover in the offensive zone by Zibanejad that leads to chaos. Just no need for it, but that's Mika's fault. Trouba makes a really nice diving play to prevent a goal, but then they call a penalty on Gustafsson, which was a pretty weak call. Interference on Gustafsson at 1:22, interfering with Marner behind the net. I'm not even sure if Gustafsson knew what was going on. And so that was not a necessary call to make. And the Maple Leafs make the Rangers pay immediately. Like 7 seconds into the power play, Marner scores his 2nd of the night, 11th of the season from Riley and Matthews on a tip-in, on a point shot from Riley. So very similar situation to the second goal. A Zibanejad clean face-off loss leads to a quick goal for the Leafs, makes it 5-3, and that just put them behind the 8 ball. And then at 11:03, Lindgren gets hit by McCabe, a clean hit. Lindgren had his head down, and he got hit hard, and Zibanejad goes after him, which is admirable, but not very smart. A, because it was a clean hit. I don't know if Mika knew that. And so, I respect his initial reaction to step up for his teammate, but it just wasn't. In that you're down by 2 with about 10 minutes left. Like, you can't afford to be on the penalty kill, and that's what happened. So Zibanejad gets the extra 2 minutes. The Rangers do kill it off, but that's precious time wasted. And then eventually at 17:11, Austin Matthews scores again, his 21st goal of the season from Nylander and McCabe. This was a bad turnover by Will Cooley in the offensive zone. I want to say again here that Gustafsson, I think, was not looking all that good defensively. It's all kind of melding together, but I think it was the case. And it makes it, maybe it wasn't. Either way, it makes it 6-3 Toronto. And then Laviolette pulls the goalie down 3, and David Kampf scores an empty net goal. He beats Gustafsson to the empty net. Kampf's 4th goal of the season from Brody and Marner. And you got a football score. Maple Leafs win 7-3 against the Rangers. Again, when the Rangers lose, they give up a lot of goals. They really, really do. And that's not great. So, look, as far as the standings are concerned, the Rangers still have, a nice cushion within their division. Some teams that you would have expected to do well have not. And so, right now, still got a comfortable lead in the Metro. Not that I'm really focusing too much on that. The Rangers do, like I said, drop to 19-7-1, and now they will take on the Ducks, a team that is really one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League, unequivocally. They give up a lot of goals. They're not very good. And so the Rangers got to get the job done there before a really big game at Boston. And Boston wants some revenge after the Rangers, however long ago it was. What was that, 3 weeks ago or so, where the Rangers beat them in MSG? So you have some interesting games. And the schedule's been interesting like that. And hey, not to mention, a week from now, Rangers get a chance to get some revenge themselves as they will go to Toronto. So that's why I think I kind of like the idea of Igor versus Anaheim, Quick versus the Bruins, and then let Igor get a chance. Because he's had success. I can think of a lot of good, Igor at Toronto has some of his better games have been there. And I think it'd be good to give him that opportunity to get that chance to beat them. So the more I think about it, that would be my preference, and we'll see what they do. But anyway, Rangers really need to play better. Let's hope Keandre Miller is not out for too long, because we see when he's out of the lineup, that's a big deal. I mean, you see it when Ryan Lindgren's out, like how that makes a big difference. Of course, Fox is out for a while, and the Rangers were able to actually hold it together. But yeah, like when you lose any of those top four, Miller, Trouba, Lindgren, Fox, like that's going to really cause a dent. It just is. And so hopefully hopefully he's okay. Clearly it's something serious enough that kept him out. They were general and vague as far as what the reasons were, which is fine. But yeah, hopefully, for his sake, for the Rangers' sake, like come this weekend, he'll be back. But we shall see. So, the Igor Shesterkin struggles continue. A really, really bad start, an awful first period leads to a 7-3 loss at MSG to the Toronto Maple Leafs.